Two of the best ways you can truly experience Disney magic is by visiting one of the 6 Disney theme park resorts, or by sailing away on any of Disney's 4 cruise ships. In the 1990s, however, Disney wanted to introduce a new traveling Disney experience, which would have given you a chance to ride Disney classics such as the Teacups, It's a Small World, and even Space Mountain by stepping onto a boat larger than an aircraft carrier. For Review Time, I'm Luke Carroll, and this is the history of Disney's floating theme park, the SS Disney. Like so many of our lost Disney stories, this one starts with Michael Eisner, who in his tenure as CEO managed to save the Walt Disney Company and usher in the Disney decade of the 1990s. During this time, the scope of Disney parks was still quite limited. Disney owned the Disneyland and Walt Disney World resorts in America, worked with the Oriental Land Company to open Tokyo Disneyland, and were currently constructing the Euro Disneyland Resort in France, which still left a lot of people around the world without direct access to a Disney park. Eisner wanted a way to reach this untapped potential and bring the experience of Disney parks all around the world, to new people and new places, without the expensive costs of building full-scale Disney resorts. Luckily for Eisner, the perfect opportunity came about. During a fundraising dinner in the early 1990s, Jim Cora, the then chairman of Disneyland International, was sitting next to an admiral of the US Navy, who, as a lighthearted comment, mentioned that he had a spare aircraft carrier Disney was welcome to build a theme park on. What originally started as a piece of lighthearted banter shared over dinner and drinks quickly became a feasible solution for bringing the Disney parks experience worldwide. The very next day, the idea was pitched to Disney corporate, who all loved the idea, and an Imagineer was brought on board immediately to try and bring the idea to life. That Imagineer was Mark Hickson, who had recently worked on projects such as Splash Mountain, Toontown, and the Broadway production of Beauty and the Beast. Before working for Disney, he had 13 years of shipbuilding experience as well, making him the ideal candidate to create all of the design concepts that would help bring this crazy idea to life. After 9 months of discussion, designing, and a feasibility study, Hickson and his team presented this 3D model for Disney's own floating theme park, the SS Disney. The first major change from the original pitch is the move from being atop an aircraft carrier to being built on an oil tanker, increasing the size of the park and in turn giving the project a higher capacity to contain the rides, attractions, and guests. The scale model design for the SS Disney was of a ship capable of holding up to 10,000 guests across its 5 decks, filled with 18 attractions, around half the number of a typical Disney park. The experience for guests would first begin dockside, where a portable main gate would be set up with a ticketing plaza created from themed shipping containers. It was here guests could purchase their tickets, as well as dine and browse souvenirs while they waited to board the ship. Upon entering the boat, guests would enter a hub-like area underneath a large glass canopy, which also contained the closest thing the SS Disney would have to a castle. This hub was multiple decks deep, giving guests a great encompassing feel, allowing them to let their eyes wander to all of the great experiences they were about to have that day. Guests then had a couple of choices. If they went to the right, they would find Fantasyland themed attractions, and to their left was Tomorrowland and Adventureland themed attractions. Some of the more exciting experiences that were planned to be part of this project included Disney Park staples, as well as ones purposefully designed for the shipboard experience. The top deck of the ship would contain the Orbitron, a large Ferris wheel, Casey Jr. train, the Teacups, Dumbo, a Fantasyland carousel under a glass dome, as well as It's a Small World, which would have been redesigned to use an Omnimover ride system like the Haunted Mansion does, to avoid the technical issues of having water-based rides aboard a ship. The benefit of having a multiple-level theme park is that rides can essentially be placed on top of each other, and below this top level throughout the other 4 decks would be a myriad of other rides and attractions, including Star Tours, Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, and Muppet Vision 3D, as well as never-before-seen attractions including both an Aladdin and Little Mermaid dark ride, as well as an Indiana Jones Runaway All-Car roller coaster. It is hard to contemplate just how massive this ship would have been. At one stage, plans called for Space Mountain to be replicated completely within the ship's lower decks. though this eventually got molded into the Indiana Jones coaster since Eisner was so enamored with that property at the time. Of course, the theme park would include more than just rides, featuring plenty of character meet and greets such as Mickey's house, theaters to host shows such as The Lion King, as well as a ton of entertainment spread throughout the ship, including singers, dancers, and Disney characters. Also on board was to be 5 fast food restaurants, 1 table service restaurant, retail stores, a Disney gallery, and the Disney store. The ship was more than just a floating theme park. It was a completely integrated city with maintenance shops, storage areas, a central kitchen, and even waste treatment plants. To bring all this magic to guests requires a workforce, and the SS Disney had a unique mix of cast members. The more senior staff were to be full-time Disney employees who traveled with the ship from port to port, and in each city it was planned to hire the other half of the workforce from locals around where the ship was to dock. These locals would be hired and trained for 2 weeks before the ship arrived, and would be contracted to work the around 3 months the ship was in their town. This would also help with bridging the language barrier when they were to dock in a non-English speaking country. The full-time employees of cast members, as well as maintenance and technical employees, would travel to each city not aboard the SS Disney itself due to safety issues, but aboard a small passenger ship that would be both their transport and permanent accommodation. This ship was also to be joined by a fireworks barge, providing a nice classic magical Disney end to your night, bringing the total boat count for the project up to 3, creating a form of mini Disney Navy. Through the feasibility study conducted by the legendary Marty Sklar, a short list of continents and countries had been selected as suitable for housing the SS Disney. These included, but were not limited to, Europe, South America, Southeast Asia, the Mediterranean, and even Australia, making this the 3rd cancelled project we've looked at here at ReviewTyme that had planned on bringing the magic of Disney parks to us Australians. The ship would have spent around 2.5 months in each city before travelling for a week or 2 to the next port and restarting the process. The ship would then not return back to that same port for around 4 to 5 years, in an attempt to not oversaturate the market. The idea at the time was popular with both Disney CEO Michael Eisner and then President Frank Wells, who both wanted to see the project realised by the turn of the millennium. Of course, that was 19 years ago now, and we still don't have a floating Disney theme park. So what happened? Well, several things. First was the sudden and shocking passing of Frank Wells, which sent shockwaves through the Disney company. Being one of the 2 main people pushing the idea of the SS Disney, with his death, half of the project's support passed with him. Whilst Eisner was known for bold, out-of-the-box ideas, his support for the project alone was not enough. After Wells' death, things changed. Disney's strategic planning group no longer wanted to do a floating theme park. They wanted to shift their focus to a cruise ship. And with the extremely expensive failure of Euro Disneyland at the time, they managed to convince Eisner that a cruise ship would be easier and cheaper to do. Since this idea, Disney has opened new theme park resorts in Hong Kong and Shanghai, and currently has an entire fleet of Disney cruise ships sailing around the world, bringing the Disney magic to more and more people every year. So the time for the SS Disney has unfortunately sailed away. Some of the ideas from the ship would be reworked into Disney's location-based entertainment division, which eventually opened Disney Quest, but most of the ideas sunk with the project. Whilst it's amazing to imagine what stepping foot on a floating Disney park would be like, unfortunately, in our imaginations, is the only place we can experience the SS Disney today. For ReviewTyme, I'm Luke Carroll. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing.